New headphones. Join later, play ARMS. Need to upload a video first. No, that's fine. We'll get to it when we get to it. I'm actually using this as an excuse to kind of reflect on, like, this is actually, while this is taking forever, I was aware that it was going to take forever. That was kind of an intentional ploy to kind of show how ARMS has transitioned over the year. Because I guess that could be our next topic that we can start with if we want. I apologize in advance. My body feels really yawny. It likes to do that too much. And it annoys me so much. You Steam Cash, you got to purchase Lethal League Blaze? Nice. But yeah, so why don't we turn off ranked? We're gonna play some ARMS test for now. Let's pick somebody that just... So how was the year? I actually did some thinking some time ago. I wrote it down on these cards. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Mileve, that's just a piece of cardboard. I know. I'm cheap and lazy, okay? It was the closest thing that was lying around that was going to get thrown out anyway, so I was like, I'll just use it. Oh gods, I'm gonna save this video and it's gonna have me yawning like 6 times. I want it to be at least somewhat professional. I mean, we're talking about me, you should be surprised. I'm actually gonna come off with the stance that most people are too harsh on 2018. I mean, yeah, it's not great, but if we're going by standard logic, none of the years are great, like ever. By the standards that everybody expects, every year sucks. Everybody has too great of an expectation. I'm not really gonna rate the year, but we will summarize it. I might rate my year, but we'll get to there when we get there. So, what was 2018 for ARMS? I did a bit of looking around. I did a bit of thinking. Well, I didn't do too much looking around. I suck at that. But I did a bit of thinking. And I just kind of played with my knowledge of how 2018 kind of worked. And I'll say what I considered the theme. There's one theme. It's kind of like a mix of these themes. I don't know. You guys can pick whichever one you think is more fitting for what the title would be. But 2018 really was like, I would consider the year. The main theme I'm going with is the year of gloves. That's what this year is for ARMS. There are various other year titles that I would go with. The year of noise, the year of boxing. But I would not... I know some people would consider this the golden age of ARMS. And I would say no. It's not even remotely close to a golden age. Like, this is much closer to a dark age than it was a golden age for ARMS. It was a good year. Definitely. Like, it had plenty of good, cool opportunities in it. But this was... To call it the golden year would mean that it had all the right pieces to make it an absolutely fantastic and good year for everyone. It didn't. One of the obvious lacking things, locals. This year, the reason why I would consider it the year of gloves or the year of noise, it was a lot of big, flashy, showy events, and a lot of them kind of boiled down to boxing matches or gloves. Resolve was one of the most prominent players of this year. Gormagala was another very prominent player. both of them, Para also especially, a huge deal for this year. All of them very prominent glove users, or they use some manner of gloves. It finished with one of the... There are a couple events that happened beyond, but for a lot of the scene, the big finish was things like Askew winning Smash Out with roasters. Dastardly running around with roasters and just crushing people. This year was an extreme amount of gloves. It was the year that everybody came to realize that gloves are absolutely overpowered. In every way you could imagine. 2018 was probably your worst year. You quit your job and was looking for a new one for 10 months. Yeah. It definitely was a rough year for a lot of people. But we'll get there as we get there. So what really defined ARMS? Obviously, the thing that most defined ARMS for 2018, while a lot of people wouldn't like to admit it, I asked on Twitter some time ago, the few people that did respond, it was EVO. If it wasn't for EVO Japan, a lot of the people who are a part of my community or are around now probably wouldn't have joined the community or wouldn't have explored it as much as they would have. Or it could have been just generally a lot harder for them to start things up. But EVO Japan, that kind of shows just what this year was, though, where a lot of the community, without question, says EVO Japan was one of the worst events for ARMS this year, yet it had the most impact. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. The easiest one being, it was the first event. It was the first major. The other one being, it was in Japan. And kind of brought... There was some interaction between the North America, or the worldwide, and Japan community. But it wasn't that strong. It was kind of relaxed. People were just kind of... The two sides were kind of doing their own thing for the most part. And EVO Japan was the first time that people really started to meet the two sides. Like, that's when I went to EVO Japan. That's when Defer, no, Scrimps wasn't there, Hanukkah. But like, a lot of us met players from Japan and actually got to know who they are to a more real degree. Rather than them just being like, people. If EVO Japan didn't happen, I don't think the relationship between online, or Japan and the world, or North America, we'll just go with North America right now because the rest of the world still is very much in this formula, but a lot of this is a lot more direct relationship between the two. But EVO Japan was essential for that relationship to really bloom. Well, maybe not essential, but it did amazing things and gave the community something it really needed. So while it had the wireless jankiness, it had the weird best of ones. It was still a pretty good year. It was a really good event. There was most of the community spent a little bit of extra time after that, so we got to know each other. We checked out the area. We said hi to them. We partied with them. It was cool. Something that I remember from EVO Japan, something that gets brought up as a fun story here and there, is the fact that what the night after Evo Japan, or was that the night of? No, it was the night of. We all went to a bar. Like, we went to a Japan bar, and it was an all-you-drink event. It was relatively cheap, and the drinks were tasty. So, a lot of drinking happened, and things got a little silly. After a while, it got to the point where we ended up going to a karaoke bar so that we could drink more and sing karaoke music. And what ended up ending the karaoke bar was the fact that S3 did not eat much food during that time, but he drank a lot. So his body didn't really take too kindly to that. And he ended up spilling a bit of his juice, we'll say. No. Oh god, so that's already on the internet. We'll say he released some of his drink on Kojara. So we had to take him back home. Or back to his place. That's one of the more prominent things amongst other things. It was where I started to get a little more comfortable with myself too. After that, the finals for that too, it was pretty glove heavy. Gormagala placed second in the event. I ended up placing fourth. Roasters was already a big deal. Toasters was around. Let's see, what else? And I believe Pego was also a pretty solid glove user at the time. And that kind of carried on. It was a very loud event. It had a lot of attention from the online ARMS community. It got a lot of people into ARMS, even if it was how it was. And that set the momentum for the rest of the year. This was also the year where every single glove was the Chilla. True. And yeah, you can see it kind of carried that forward because all of a sudden the community felt like they needed to be really loud. Which is why I also call it the year of noise. Players like Resolve, like Gormagala, already had gained a pretty strong voice from the previous year and things building up. So they had a lot of respect amongst the community. People listened to them a lot, and they were very loud people. Like, I don't mean that in a negative way. They talked a lot. They made a lot of noise. Resolve is very well known for raising concern over so many things. Some of them may be questionable, but he raised concern over a lot of things. A lot of our higher end players were much louder players at the start of the year. And yeah, that carried on. Next event was Winter Brawl. There was a fundraiser that went on for that. And it ended up making the prize pool $1,000. We're probably not going to see that kind of thing again. Because that's a lot of money. And also, ARMS is not going to have a huge impact like it did this year. It's not going to have a loud start to it that's going to allow it to echo and slowly come down all the way up to Smash Out. It's not going to have those kinds of effects. So yeah, Winter Brawl happened. Gloves definitely still a thing there. I won't bring up gloves every single time because quite literally gloves are a big deal in every single event. Like, they're always there. The reason being is there's a super safe and efficient arm even after they sustain a nerf or two. Like, I know Resolve was moderately unhappy with the nerf to the Glove Rush and the various other nerfs that gloves have sustained, but even in their situation, even in the position these gloves are, they're extremely powerful, extremely dangerous, and so easy to use that even in their worst state, they're more powerful than most gloves, most weapons in this game. So, Winter Brawl happens, and that's when a little bit of controversy starts to happen too. Like, I believe it's either then or a little bit later that Resolve starts getting his concern over Moslin. I think, no, it was Switchfest. Let's see. Oh yeah. Well, we won't talk about it tournament by tournament because there's too many of them and it's hard to keep track of. Feel like the event put competitive arms in the public eyes of Western audiences nicely. The way they showed it, I definitely would say it helped out. I definitely would say it was a well done, well organized, well ran event. Except for the part building up to it, which isn't as publicly discussed, but I feel like is an example of every single flaw that Nintendo has had with ARMS. Like, the part they showed, pretty good. Really good, fun, showcases ARMS, makes it cool to some people, but the things you had to do to build yourself up to that point, or at least for a lot of people, like, it was a very frustrating event. I don't like it. Like, it was cool, and overall it was good. I don't like that. I don't think back very fondly of the US-Canada Open. I actually think very negatively of it. But yeah, a lot of it was noise. It was Japan, or it was Nintendo of America. They did a couple of things. Evo Japan was obviously a big one. Made lots of noise. One of the, and the year was, in terms of characters, this was a year where a lot more of the straightforward characters, the characters that are a little bit more baity, a little more patient, they generally were the more prominent characters to place well in tournaments. We saw lots of Springman. It was the year where the characters started to decline, but they only started to decline at the late end of the year. Like, Springman, Twintel was really a big deal. Like, Twintel was constantly just a terror. Brass started to become a big deal. Helix is definitely a more complicated character, but the way Gore plays him, you could see what he was doing. It made sense. The big difference is most Helix didn't play like him, and he kind of popularized double glove for Helix in North America, because while there were a lot of Japan Helix that used double glove, he was the one that really showed what it's capable of. Kid Cobra is hot, yes. Very true. This was also when Kid Cobra was hot started. Quail also entered the scene, and we saw Quail kind of develop and grow into what she is now. Even now, like, she is very clearly a high-tier character. She still doesn't have too many big placements. I think her latest one was Ultimatum, where Dastardly and Steel went to. The Chilean community hating Gore because he was using double glove. Let's see, what else was this year? It was the birth of the idea of offlines for ARMS. Like, well, it wasn't the birth, but it was the adolescent phase where there was all the energy, all the excitement. We were like children, gleeful at the idea that offlines were going to be a thing again, or a thing for us. There were a couple in 2017. The biggest one I would say is Smash Out, but it was still, at that time, that was defaults. And then with Evo Japan, we started to get customs. And that's when people started to get really excited about ARMS. Like, defaults was cool, and it was still a pretty prominent thing. But a lot of people just wanted customs, and we ended up getting that for this year. It was the year where we finally started to understand at least the base rules that we feel are most enjoyable for ARMS. Let's see. So I already said Springman, Twin Tail, big deal. Mechanica was actually a big deal. I wonder why Mechanica was a big deal. It was a... Actually, like, on the note of Mechanica, like, we'll get to that in a moment, but I feel like I was an example of something that started to come up more late end of the year with players like Dendi. We'll get to it more. It's going to go into my predictions for 2019. But yeah, we'll get to that. So, what else do we have? Update. This was the decline of the updates, and really what put ARMS in a negative light for a lot of people. Because, as I've seen some people post online, people have become very update hungry. If there isn't an update happening, they're generally very unhappy with things. Like, they want more updates. They want more things being changed. Less... Hang on. Now, I'm gonna get to that, Gaddy. That's part of what I'm going with. But, like... Now, let's see. Yeah, so updates kind of ended. People started to get a little unhappy with that concept. What else do we got? Oh, yeah. We finally start to get an understand... Like, 2017 was the year where things were rapidly going on. Everybody was excited. Nobody could keep up with things. While updates ended, that also gave way to us finally starting to figure out and have some kind of understanding of the tier list. As with any other game, I'd say we're not even close to understanding what the tier list is actually going to look like in the end. We're probably still fairly far off. Mechanica, Lollipop potentially might be a little bit higher. Min Min might potentially be higher on the tier list. And yeah, we start to get an idea. Bad Express is good. Coil is clearly good. Kid Cobra is good. And then a lot of these other characters are good, but not great yet. And then we have a couple where we're like, we still don't really know what's going on with them. Bite and Bark, Missango being prominent examples of that, where it's like, we can tell that there's potential in there. We just haven't seen it. Let's see what else. End of online chaos. All the offlines also kind of gave a lot of players, Redengard being a really good example of this, a taste of what playing ARMS offline is like. And as such, kind of started to bring the decline of online. Ranked was already struggling. People were very frustrated with it. Because it kept going with things like it brought in name redacted, it had cinema dough in it, it had ramen bowl, which frustrates a lot of players. So people generally tried to avoid that. And as the online kind of continued, or as the offline events kind of continued, it kind of caused more players to be caught into the beauty of the offline, to the degree that they were too absorbed into what online wasn't, that they weren't able to enjoy it anymore because they could only play offline. So we started to see like online community start to die down. Things like Mega League Monday started off very strong. It was a huge deal for a while, and just along with a few other things, it just kind of started to wither. We are starting to get more online stuff going on again. Champion of the Era, Iron Fist Fridays. There's a couple of cool things going on, but overall, I wouldn't. The year where big things like Ramen Bowl was like a reliable thing that could happen, and it would be a huge turnout. I feel like those kinds of years, that year, that's gone for now. It'll probably come back maybe in the future, but as it currently stands, I don't see much of a future for that kind of thing. Strike League was a huge example of that. It was a really cool idea. It was a pretty fun one. If it happened, it was just, well, it had the problem of being timed around the holiday season, which is the hardest time to do anything. But like, I guess the best way to compare the ARMS Coliseum, like 1 and 2 that happened this year, versus Strike League, and just see the difference in the attendance, the attention, and how it kind of worked. Like, it's such a stark contrast. So much so that Strike League didn't even finish. It just disappeared. Where ARMS Coliseum had 2 decent-sized finales. I wouldn't worry about ARMS having, or other games coming out. I don't feel like that would... Those are kind of their own entities. They kind of fit into their own world, and they bring things out differently. Some people definitely did slip away because they're like, the game I've been waiting for my whole life is finally out! And then they dump ARMS. But I'm gonna be honest, those people weren't gonna stick around anyways. It didn't have to be Dragon Ball FighterZ. It didn't have to be Smash Brothers. They would have left for so many other reasons. So I wouldn't say it's a good example just based on the concept of like, they're probably gonna leave anyways. Like, we're not worried about those. We're not kind of on the line of what Nintendo says. We're not competing with them. They're different things. So yeah, because people finally started to get a taste of what offline is like, they know what they want out of it now, and online really struggles to do that for them. So people abandon online. It becomes less and less prominent, continues to decline, to the point where it is now, where there's still a handful of very passionate online players, but some of the biggest players that we have don't even consider online existing. Let's see. Oh, 2018 was definitely the fall of the Cruz. Not Terry Crews. I'm sure he's doing fine. But, like, the small community groups. Like TCM, Milky Way. We saw most of them fall this year. At least to some degree or another. With the only one that was prominently able to survive being TCM. I'll get to that in a minute, but basically, yeah, this was the year. 2017, early 2018 was the year where a lot of the crews, it was a cool idea. Get all the communities together, get everybody to hang out and work together as a bunch of friends. And yeah, cool times. And then people start to realize that there's a little bit of work that has to go into that, and nobody wanted to do that work, so. Or the people running the events ended up getting outed to be not so great people. So things fell. I'll get to Milky Way in a little bit too, but that one's not going to be similar to TCM. Let's see. This was a very nice year for techs. A lot of really cool ideas, a lot of cool concepts happened in this year. People discovered some really cool stuff. There's a big downside to it though. Nobody documented any of it. So we've got a couple of the techs that players just inherently know to a light degree. But, like, who remembers S3's dash out a shield tech? Does anybody know how to find it? Does anybody know how to find most of the guides that have popped up from this year? I do. But I had to do a lot of digging to find most of them. Or they're from communities that have started to slip away a little bit and become more dormant. So they're a little bit harder to find. So a lot of our guides and information, like Redengard has a video that he made about movement. He made that post. It got a bit of attention. I literally never heard of it again. Nobody ever talked about it. I don't think I saw any kind of growth from many players because of it. It just wasn't. It was a big deal, and then it was gone. Much like this video very likely will be. This is probably going to have a very similar fate. Well, actually no, it won't. I wouldn't say so because I still keep things going on in my channel. I share things a little bit more. I keep things going. I'm still here. I'm still pushing things around. I'll probably bring this up from time to time. I'll try to have this set up as a little more accessible. Especially with things like Flourish, which, another thing I'll get into. But yeah, a lot of guides, a lot of text, a lot of the really cool things never went documented. Another really good example of this. I found out that you can adjust the height of Lollipop using shields. And then an ex-member who doesn't play ARMS anymore was like, oh, you should, wow, you didn't know that? Oh god, oh, you're so dumb. And it's like, he never told anyone. He never shared it. He never checked to see if people knew it or not. He just decided that everybody knows it, so let's not bother. So, Lollipop now has a new tech that people weren't aware of, or a new ability that she can do. That, yeah, nobody knew of, because nobody talked about it. And that's just how bad communication about techs or abilities in this community have been, where nobody's talking about this stuff, and the few people that are kind of disappear, or they just, this stuff doesn't get archived anywhere. And so we find these cool things, and then we find them again because nobody shares them, or nobody gets them in the mind of the community enough that most people will remember these things. Yeah, actually, I think that sums up the year. That kind of brings us to what most of this year was, how it kind of ended. I guess the next question is, well, maybe a library or something? Yeah. Oh, we'll get there. That comes to the next question, which is, I guess, with all that said, and so we'll finish with the summary of 2018 before I go on with things. So, how does that all make 2018 the year of noise / the year of gloves? Well, it makes it that year because that's quite literally what a lot of this was. It was mindless noise. It was people screaming about things like evil Japan. It was people getting very loud and excited about things going on. It wasn't about it wasn't about lasting noise. It was just people being loud. It was gloves. It was the nade. It was the roaster. It was the toaster. It was the chilla. It was all these things that people just used to punch each other.
My turn.
So it ended up turning this year into, and that's kind of what brought this year to be what it is, where there was a lot of big things that happened this year for ARMS. Most of it might not be remembered very much. Like, we'll remember, like, details like, oh, customs started to become a thing. Oh yeah, Resolve was a big deal. But some of the most important things that happened didn't happen. Or they couldn't happen, they happened in a way where people didn't get to really see it. So, what does this mean for 2019? I would probably say 2019 is going to be the year of the local. This is the year where things are gonna kind of start changing. A lot. Like, huge players like Resolve. Gore's a lot more quieter now. A lot of other players that come to mind, I'm not going to share their names. But a lot of players that either had huge controversies pop up during this time, during this year, or are just very vocally loud people that, while they were good for the scene in one way or another, might not be good for the scene in the long run. They're not as prominent of faces. We have different faces now who are starting to take a little bit more of the scene. Scrimps is still Scrimps took a break for the last couple of months, but he's still around. Pineapple is definitely still around, but he's become very dormant. So while he's a huge deal, a lot of new players might not really know who he is too well, beyond just talk from people. They'll see him from some events here and there, like Smash and Splash. He'll probably pop up. But a lot of the new faces are like Scrimps. I've definitely grown to be a decent face in the community. Dendy is definitely a face in the North American community. And a lot of these people are generally people that are a little more not negative, we'll say. They're a little more open. They're a little more willing to explore, experiment. A lot of these people are just having fun with the game. Like, the tryhards have kind of left. This is going to be a year where a lot of the more prominent players are chumps like me. I mean, as much as anybody would want to call me a chump or something like that. Next year is... Oh, Hanukkah's another big face. Like, he's definitely going to become even more prominent. We're going to see next year more teams. Teams are going to be a lot bigger of a thing. Last year we had all of the crews set to destroy, and then detonators to a degree. Detonators is still around. They've got Chateau. They're going to probably stick around for a while still, at least in the Japan area. And Chateau might actually be dropping by for a couple more online events, which is pretty awesome. But it's got new teams. It's got Flourish. Flourish is going to start flourishing this year. Illusion has built a huge base for itself. It has some amazing players and some incredible potential right now. And I would be hard-pressed to say that based on the people who are in that group, that it would get floundered or wasted. Like, right now, Illusion is definitely the new set to destroy. In terms of how the community is going to start seeing it. Like, they're cautious because of set to destroy. They're cautious because of the crews. But Illusion is definitely the new... Yeah, you get it. You get the idea. I don't need to say the word 6 more times. It's just going to feel weird. But they're that new team. We're going to start seeing the few teams that are alive still. Milky Way has actually come back. Not the way you would expect. Certain prominent players are no longer a part of it. And it has been passed down to radio. I'm not sure what's gonna happen there. I see Milky Way becoming more of a community. I haven't even talked to any degree about Arms of the North, but that's because it was always a very quiet, introverted group. Like they got loud. Arms of the North got very loud about some of the things it did, but it was a very quiet, introverted community that liked to keep to itself, and it still is. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's what Arms of the North is. It's kind of turned into more of a community than like a crew of players trying to push things. Right now, I believe the only 3 that are like genuinely still trying to... Well, we have a few players, but like right now, yeah, I won't say much there. There's a decent amount of people in there, but it's mostly more of a community. A lot of people in Arms of the North are kind of looking more towards Smash right now. Not surprising, it's Smash. So, with those two, we've got TCM. I think TCM's gonna actually, with how TCM's been going, how it's steadily been working on itself, how it's been progressing, TCM is going to become, like, I feel like this is the year TCM actually has, like, a chance to become an official team. And by that, I mean, like, if they keep pushing, if they keep chugging along, if they keep trying to do what they're trying to do, I would not be surprised if they got a sponsor or two. Especially with Illusion becoming a big deal. If Flourish starts to work the way it wants to, people might start talking a bit more about TCM. They might start talking more about themselves, become a little more vocal about them being a thing. and they might get something. They might start getting sponsors. They might start getting the support they want and need. So we could actually potentially see some really cool stuff start happening with them. Let's see, what else is there? The characters, like, yeah, let's go over to this next. Actually, where am I? Players will be more prominent. Oh yeah, let's go over this. The more technical aspect of ARMS is going to become more prevalent. And we're going to see that in the way that certain characters are going to start climbing up the tier list or the meta. They're going to start to become more of a big deal than they might have once been. We're going to see more rush interactions. Like, the standard, my rush outweighs your rush, or I'm going to jump over your rush. That stuff is very well understood by a lot of the high-end community. And now we're seeing things like Askew being like, my rush is just inherently better than yours because I get to kick down your attack, go for a grab, you respond with whatever, then I get a kick, use rush, kick again, which immediately counters whatever you just tried to do, and then I hit you. And in most cases, there's very little you can do. But players will learn a way to kind of counteract that. We're going to start seeing more of that kind of stuff. You're going to see use rush, and not even start swinging. Like, you'll throw out your rush because you know your opponent's going to try to counterplay your rush. So you just wait a second, fix your camera as they make their jump, and just as they activate rush, you're already targeting them again, and your rush hits them before they throw out their rush. We're going to see more of that stuff. We're going to see... I'm going to say, lower tier characters are going to become more prominent. Max Brass, Coil, Kid Cobra, they're all really good. But people are going to start understanding how to kind of counterplay them, and they're going to become less prominent. A lot of things are going to change in the way that, like, while Mechanica was already a huge deal this year, probably, well, a lot because of me, I will not lie, at least this time. Even though I did 20 minutes ago. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to start seeing more of Master Mummy. We're going to start seeing more of Lollipop. Lollipop has had some huge results because of Twin 5-0. Mechanica has had huge results because of me. We're starting to see the really masterful players of these second-rate characters. Mechanica, Master Mummy, Lollipop. You say a name for those three, and we have very clearly definable people for that. Dendi, Merv, we have Twin. Like, they're very straightforward. Like, they're... You see these people. These players and their characters are going to become more prominent. We might start seeing more of those characters start to become more of a bigger deal. But the big ones that we're going to start seeing more of, and we're already starting to see it with Mr. M, I would say that Gillyboat potentially has some ability too. He just has to get things going. Incredible Matt is a really good example. Like, technical characters, technical fighters. Springtron is going to become a lot more meta very soon. I think one of the reasons why Springtron hasn't done so well as of late is because most of the strongest Springtron users didn't understand how to fully take advantage of EMP. And I kind of covered that a while ago with my discussion about using your EMP in a way that, or you selecting arms that allows you to get quite literally free EMPs. Which, if you get a free EMP, you're immediately so much more advantaged than literally any other character in this game. Not even a question. You get so much more of an advantage. And all you need to land is a single popper, a single boomerang, a single parasol. You land any of those and you immediately are just winning. Your opponent has to fight back so hard. A lot of players thought Ice Glove was the really good place for Springtron. I'd still say Ice Gloves are definitely a really good pick, but I'd say Wind is just so much more effective on him. And we're starting to see some of the Springtron players start playing with Wind. Soon they're going to start realizing how safe they are. Like, I've dabbled with it a bit. I understand how safe hitting with the Wind element is, and then just going for a free EMP. It's so delicious. Springtron, I will not be surprised in the slightest. Oh yeah, well, we're not even going to discuss all the reasons why Wind is good. It's just, Wind is good. It's probably the strongest element in this game that's just completely been underrated. It's good for aggression, it's good for defense. So yeah, we're going to start seeing more Springtron. Springtron, once players start to get the hang of Springtron and taking advantage of his abilities, it's kind of ironic, because one of Springtron's strongest abilities, or tools, he literally starts with. But people always went for the other two. They always went for the Toaster and Tribal, never the Boomerang. Yet the Boomerang was his strongest weapon. It was maybe not his most consistent, but paired up with either of the other two, or even going double Boomerang, would make him a monster. What else are we gonna see? Glove meta. There are things that can counter the glove meta. This year was understanding that the glove meta is a thing, and that it sucks for a lot of people. Next year is going to be people learning how to fight back against gloves. I've started to have some really nice results with double whammer. Or, well, not double whammer, but with a single whammer. If I used Whammer Nate for more of my fights and didn't go so experimental against Askew and Smash Out, he might have lost. There's a very good possibility he could have lost that match. Like, not even joking. So we might start seeing more of that happen. What else are we gonna start seeing? Things are probably gonna calm down a lot. With the first month or two of this year, we do have a couple of cool events coming up. The community's probably gonna be pretty chill. Like, January is going to be a very quiet month. February will have some light attention because of 2GG. March is probably going to be another pretty quiet month. NCR does happen, but due to things going on, we'll likely not have ARMS. April probably will also be pretty quiet. May, we'll see. June, Smash and Splash. So a lot of like those events that we had last year in the Year of Noise are not around anymore. We don't have those big, flashy, fanciful events. But we are going to start having more locals. We already have a few people in the community who are finally, like, emotionally ready. They understand things enough. Hanukkah has done wonders for a lot of people. Locals might start becoming a bit more of a thing. We already have huge examples of how it can work with Moonbase Alpha or St. Louis. And we got California. Like, there's one in Germany, I believe, that does pretty well too. Like, we're gonna start seeing a couple more of them. And that's, so we might, and because of that, if they get going, actually we even have like, we've got a couple that I know are starting to pop up. I know Matt is looking into getting things rolling. I know I'm getting things going. I'm trying to get things going. I know something in Ontario is going on. I know Vancouver had an effort, but it didn't really work out. Let's see, what else is there? So yeah, we've got about 2, maybe 3 offline events that are going to start hopefully becoming more common. And there's a possibility more will come from there. We just need people to be like, hey, look at... We just need people to understand how to share this game with others in a way that allows people to be more interested in exploring it. Because the problem with the offlines was they were cool, but they kind of had a lot of caveats and costs and challenges, and it was too every time, like, it was an event that sometimes people are just like, this is the one of the 1 or 2 events that I'm actually going to. I'm not spending it on this weird game called ARMS. I'm gonna focus on Smash Brothers or Tekken or so on and so forth. Once locals become more of a thing, you get more people who are like, I might as well check it out. It's like, this is just a monthly. It's just a casual thing. And then you drop by and you're like, so what's this like? And then they play ARMS, and then maybe they enjoy it enough that they start looking into it more. That's probably going to be more of a thing, and that's how the player base is going to grow. I guess that kind of sums up what I expect from 2019. It's going to be a pretty good year. It's going to be a real... It's not going to be as flashy. It's not going to be as flamboyant or wonderful of a year. But it's going to be a year. It's going to be a year that's good. It's going to have some really nice things going on in it. It might not be as extravagant as this year, but I will definitely say, just on predictions on how I see things are going, it's going to be a good year. This year was really good for ARMS. But much like me, it was also a really bad year. Since I made that transition, why don't we talk about my year in 2018? We could do that. Why not? If people want to do some sparring, I am down to do some sparring. I'm just doing ARMS tests because it's an easy way just to have matches going that I kind of like paying some attention to. But yeah, if anybody wants to play a bit, we could play a bit. So what was the year like for me? Because... how many events did I do? Something like 10 or 11 events. I pretty much went to an event every... if we were to divvy it up, I went to an event traveling to a competitive event every month except for 1 or 2 months of this entire year. Don't do that. Don't do that unless it's your profession. It's not my profession. I shouldn't have done that. This year, I know a lot of people talk about it's like, oh, this is the worst. This year sucked. But you know what? So did the last year. So did the year before. Every time somebody says, this year sucked. And I'm noticing that some people online are starting to notice this too. It's like, every year sucks. This is just, like, not even joking. It's like, the most popular thing to say at the end of the year is, this year sucked. You just say, goodbye 2018, you sucked. People will be like, yeah, it's stupid. 2019 is going to be so much better. I mean, if you're going to keep that mental approach, if you're going to play that way, 2019 is just going to suck as much. For me, 2018 was the best year I've ever had. But it's also the worst. This was a year where I really found myself. Like, I know who I am so much more than I used to. I know so much more what I like, what I don't like, who I appreciate being around, who I'm comfortable with. Being comfortable with myself. This stream itself is a huge example of how I've, like, grown as myself to be comfortable with who I am. The simplest example. Even before Hyrule Saga, I would have never had webcam and not do my makeup. I'm still gonna call myself garbage. I'm gonna still look at myself and say I look hideous. But I'm at least comfortable enough with myself that I'm like, let's still put the webcam up. Let's still, so I can wave at you and say hi. Flashback any point of this year up to literally the final event for me, Smash Out. Wouldn't have happened. Like, I did webcam here and there, but not too much. And then after a while, I just stopped doing webcam entirely, and now I'm doing webcam again. An even more vulnerable state than before, because now I actually look like a man, where before I was just afraid I looked like a man. My voice has also changed a little bit. Honestly, not in the way I like it. I feel like it's gotten a bit too boyish again. But the big thing to go back on again is I'm comfortable. I care, but not that much. It's a voice. Whoop-de-doo. Like, what are you gonna do? Call me a man? I'll just look at you like you're a complete jerk, and then we'll move on with our lives. So, yeah. Another story about how I've grown to become more comfortable. Like, while things like that are more, like, clear and visible, like, well, while the progress is a lot more noticeable at this point, like, it was clear that I was getting more comfortable with myself even at the start of this year. Like, I'm not going to go into detail, but I'll just quickly cover. I went in Tokage 2018 when I went with Resolve and S3 to compete in that event. We went to a spa together. There are so many different worlds where that would have never happened. Yet it happened. It was pretty cool. I've traveled so much more, to the degree I'm mildly addicted to the concept of traveling. I absolutely adore it. It's really cool. I get to meet so many. I'm so much more awkward than I was before. But that's because I've put on less and less of a face with every passing year. Like, I barely have a face anymore, or a mask that I put over myself. Like, I do have the professional and, like, mature kind of display that I hold out from time to time, but I'm more just, like, me without worrying about it. I'm fine with silence to a degree. Like, I would like to not be as quiet with my streams, but at the same time, it's like, it's okay. It's not really as bad as I think it is. Like, a lot of people push for you always have to be talking, you always have to make noise, you always have to be interacting with the community. You don't! No, you don't! You have to be yourself. You have to be the person that the community likes you for. Which is, if you've built the right community, you. So, I don't have to do anything special. If I awkwardly pause in the middle of a conversation because that's just how I go, because I suck at talking, I mean, it'd be better to improve on that. I still want to improve on that. But I don't have to pause and then become terrified at the concept of the fact that I just stopped talking. Because it's fine. I stopped talking. Okay, cool. Like, there's things that I still want to say. There's a lot that I still will say, but it's not as much of a concern. Because while I am trying to build a community, I'm trying to get a partnership and all that stuff. Like, it's not, I have to do this way, and I can't be myself, or I can't be this thing because of reasons. I just go as me. Hi, I'm Merv. I exist. Besides, the coolest ones like Markiplier and Game Grumps gotta do it, why can't I? Yeah. This year was a lot of that. A lot of it was me understanding, like, my limits. I can't do 10 tournaments in a year while trying to work retail, while trying to work on small projects here and there, while being self-conscious. I can't do all that at once. I can't. That's not me. That's not something I can do. I wish I could do it. I can't do that. This is just not how I work. next year's gonna be really cool for me because now I have all this confidence. I have myself to work with. I'm like, let's see what I can do now with all this stuff that I've got. Like, I'm gonna start trying to get a local going. It's something I've wanted for the longest time. Well, not so much a local, but like a monthly. I've wanted that so much. And I'm gonna make one. Just, I never felt ready to. Now I feel ready to. It's gonna be cool. I'll probably travel a lot less, but the trips that I'm gonna take, I understand enough so that they're gonna be really good trips. I'm not going to have another Smash and Splash. Well, I might, but I'm gonna be a lot better at managing myself so that if another Smash and Splash happens, it's going to not be nearly as painful. I'm going to control and limit myself to a degree where I don't try to do 30 things at once and then immediately have no time for relaxation during the event that I'm supposed to be relaxing at. Like, who would think a water park would be the most stressful place you could be at any moment of your life? A giant, super awesome one, where there's video games going on too. Only I could mess that up in whatever dumb way I choose. Is it gonna happen again? Probably. But it's gonna be more in line with something like Smash Out, where I get really stressed out or a lot of stressful things happen at once, but I still find the time to make sure that I'm okay, to help myself feel better. Where Smash and Splash, I had all the things that sucked happen, and then I didn't give myself any time to help myself feel better. Where Smash Out, it hurt a lot, but like I actually gotta sit back and be like, alright, I'm gonna take a breather. I took the breather, and then I was okay enough to keep going. And I placed in top 6. Hey! It's gonna be a cool year. It's gonna be another tiring year. But that's just my life. I don't really have much else I can say about myself, my year, how things went. Overall, like, it's a little more difficult to say. It was a good year though. Some cool things happened. It was an exhausting year. There were a lot of very tiring events. I don't go to 11, 10 tournaments in a year unless you're being, like, that's literally your job. It doesn't work out otherwise. But yeah, that's about it, I guess. That's 2018 for ARMS. It's 2019 for ARMS. It's 2018 for me. I have no predictions for what's going. You know what? Predictions. What do I see coming up in 2019? I see myself traveling still. I'm gonna keep doing that. My concerns on wages or money is going to be a lot less of an issue. Like, it's been managed. I've thought about things. I've done a bit of calculations. If things were to go the way that I'm expecting and kind of see, I'll probably pay off any of the debt that I built up this year. And I'm going to be able to make a bit of savings. I'll probably use most of that for travel. But the travel won't destroy me this time, so that's cool. Let's see. My goal for 2019, if we're gonna have any kind of goals, I want to take, maybe not a set, but I want to take a game off a well-placing Smash Ultimate player. I want to take on somebody like Nairo and be able to stand up to them and do the fighting. Will I? I don't know. We'll see. I won't be surprised if that doesn't happen. That's asking a lot. I'm fine with it not happening. That's like my crazy expectation. And anything beyond would be like, yeah. I'm gonna have I want to make sure I get a local going. Hopefully or a monthly. I want to see if I can get it going by, what is it, February? March at latest? Would be pretty cool. I'm gonna work on my confidence a lot more. In terms of my personal life, I'm probably gonna, I have hopes and like expectations that I should have surgery. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I've been working for it for a while. The last half of this year were many opportunities where I could have had it, and then I whiffed it hard based on either an event going on or me just blundering it. This next year, things are set up in a lot more achievable way for me to go see my therapist, get the stuff filled out, and then maybe get thrown onto a queue. That would be cool. What else is there? Probably meet new people. This thing will hopefully be gone by the end of the next year. Hopefully. We'll see. Because I am tired of that thing existing. So sick and tired of it. No, yeah, the next one's a 4. Okay. I'm probably gonna keep working at the superstore. Another hopeful goal that I'm not expecting, but I would be super down to have happen. I kind of want to get to partnership. Numbers right now don't seem very promising for that. If I make some good pushes in Smash Brothers, though, possibly. I could probably get, like, if I was doing well in Smash Brothers and I was a good streamer on it, I could get some potentially good attention on myself and potentially use that to lever myself into more stuff. I don't know what else to really say with that. I think that's about it. I think we're good. How long was that? I think I started about 20 minutes into the stream, 15 minutes. So a little over an hour talk. That's a lot of talking. Holy jeez. That is a long rant. Cool. So yeah, I'll ask again. Anybody want to spar? Could play some arms. Could do some stuff. I might speedrun for an hour. If nobody feels like it. I've done arms test enough. You're fine? I'm glad you're fine. You should be fine. You deserve to be fine. It's as life should be. Besides, the AI is getting difficult enough. I probably need to start paying attention to this stuff. Ah, I whipped that. Now we get the safe, the shields, the wins. Maybe work on my commentary a little bit more. Become more woman. Oh yeah, well, there's not really much to talk about with Flourish. Just wait and see, and more stuff will pop up in due time. Some cool stuff coming up with Flourish, though. I'm looking forward to having things start with them. Like, we've got the momentum. We got pieces of the puzzle in place. We just need the puzzle to happen.